Good afternoon to my Welsh non-speakers, and out to the Welsh speakers. My name is Yetsune Fadi, and I'm your host and chair for this session. You're welcome to our digital workshop tagged Youth Activism and Climate Change in commemoration of the Global Solidarity Summit 2021, organized by Hub Kimmery Africa and SSAP. Like I said, I'm your host for today, and we'll be addressing climate-induced migration as a topic. So why is climate-induced migration important? This is what we aim to find out during this 1 hour session. And it is definitely not news that for youth is like our decade of action. So we have to move fast and accurate, and youth need to be 100% involved. Also today we'll be identifying gaps and examining, improving the understanding of integrating our lifestyle, our entrepreneurial strategies to achieve sustainable development towards goal 2030. And we hope to address this, which is climate-induced migration, and how it can be, tackled with youth and its impact on the post-COVID recovery. So this workshop will be delivered in a stakeholder approach. So it's really peculiar because we envision that our discussion will feed into an action plan that can be deliberated on a community and global level. During this 1 hour session, key issues like the interrelationship between climate change, migration as a result of climate change, youth and internationalism would be highlighted and presented by our speaker in form of interactive lectures and active participation from you, our audience. So we'll also be having breakout sessions, and this is basically to cater for quality feedback, and this is also an opportunity for you to lend your voice and network, of course, and also share what you've been doing within your community to make it better. So we have some housekeeping rules, and just to give a perspective, this event will be a meeting format, which means that attendees have the facility to share their microphones and videos, and this event will be recorded. So if you do not wish to be recorded, you can turn off your video by clicking the stop video in the Zoom toolbar. Also, please only unmute your mic when you are invited to speak by the host or the chair, which is me. And if you wish to contribute, please raise your hand by clicking reactions in the toolbar, or basically clicking raise your hand. Please, I would also want to ask us to use the chat box to interact with other attendees. One of the reasons why we're having this insightful project is, to connect with people and to network. So please network with other people, and we would definitely value your feedback. So at the end of the session, we'll be posting a feedback survey link in the chat box, and we want to encourage that you feel this. So going over the housekeeping and ground rules, we have this on the screen. So if you want to go over it, and I would also want to state that we need to respect each other, because this is a safe space for minoritized people, so to speak, and no form of abuse will be tolerated. So please make sure your conversation is, yes, challenging, but also constructive as well. So to the agenda, I want to believe that we are still right on track, and if not, we would be commenting soon. But before we comment, yes, we would want us to quickly take a poll. I would launch the poll now, and we can participate. So the poll has 3 questions. We just basically want to get your feedback as regarding this, and there we go. So please participate in the poll, everyone. If you can see the poll, let me know. Are we participating? Let me know if you can see the poll, please. You can drop a comment in the chat box and we go from there. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'm about to end the poll. So in the next 1 minute, so if you've not done, if you've not finished with the poll, kindly hurry just to make sure we are still on track with our timing. Oh, thank you, Dogara, Xavier, and Julian. I got your response.
Hi, Yetunde.
Okay, so yes, please.
Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. We'll be ending the poll shortly. So, okay, awesome. I can see so many people have gone with the poll. So yes, I'm going to end the poll now, and then we can continue just because of time. Okay, I'll be sharing the results. Oh, I guess we should basically just stop sharing because of time. Let's just get on with the business of the day. Okay, so I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Her name is Adenike Oladosu, and I will be reading a biography shortly. So Adenike Titilope Oladosu is a Nigerian climate activist. She's an eco-feminist and initiator of the Fridays for Future movement in Nigeria. She specializes in equality, security, and peace building across Africa, especially in the Lake Chad region. She is recognized as one of the young Black activists in Africa trying to combat climate change alongside Vanessa and Elizabeth by Greenpeace UK for the UK Black History Month. And in December 2019, Gladys attended the COP25 gathering in Spain as a Nigerian youth delegate, where she was giving a moving address about climate change in Africa and how it affects our lives. She began advocating in communities, schools, and public places to speak to people about climate crisis. And in 2019, Oladosu was the recipient of the Ambassador of Conscience Award by Amnesty International, and she spoke to the world leaders at the UN Youth Climate Summit. She attended the 2019 Climate Change Conference in Madrid alongside Greta Thunberg, and she drew the attention of world leaders towards the Nigerian and African climate movement. Please make welcome Ademike Oladosu. Ademike Oladosu, it's great to have you. Please, can you unmute?
Good afternoon from Nigeria.
Good afternoon, Ademike.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm glad to be here to speak on this crucial event or crucial topic today on migration, because it's something that it's happening. We are seeing it every day, and it's due to the climate change crisis. And that is why it is being referred to as climate migration or climate refugee. So it's been defined. So it have a definition that all of this crisis that's happening is from climate change induced factors. So I have a slide. Please, can you go to the first slide? Where is my slide? Please, can you display it?
Your slide is on here. So, sorry, my network is quite.
Okay, thank you. So, no, the first slide, I mean. This is the second slide.
Okay.
Okay, so talking about climate migration, that it's a function of mobility and resources which depend on the speed of change and the number of people it affects. When we talk about migration, it's a complex relationship because it's those people that are affected the most that literally did not migrate, because they have the resources, they have the network that they have built over time where they are staying. So as such, you just see that they're continually being affected by this crisis. They can't move to another region because this thing is affecting them. If they are going to leave, then they become internally displaced people, of which we are seeing around our country, yeah. And it's so unfortunate that Africans bear this burden of those that are displaced, because we have quite a million of those that are displaced by the climate change crisis. You know, we have the lowest carbon footprint, but yet we had the one that bear the burden of this crisis. So you could see how climate migration is playing out when we talk about the Lake Chad region, where we have exodus of people that have left the Sahel region. And it first started with the Sahara region, which is the world's largest and hottest desert. Before, it was the greenest landscape in Africa. But now it is now the world's largest and hottest desert. So people left there. It leads to exodus of migration of people to Sahel, because Sahel was once a fertile landscape, but now 80% of it have been degraded. And at the same time, 80% of their population depends on their landscape for survival. So climate migration is issue of survival of the fittest, because when they can't survive anymore and they can't cope, then they have to leave that area to another area that they don't know what to wear and how to get their daily living, how to survive. So they become decimated by the climate change crisis. Please go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, talking about the classification of climate migration, we have non-climatic drivers, talking about the population growth, income distribution, government policies. These things indirectly affect climate migration because of the policies of government not favoring one area or one particular state. Then people have to live there to see how they can adapt to the climate change crisis. And when we talk about the climate drivers, we have two types. Process which have to do with the sea level rise, salinization of agricultural land, desertification, and growing of water scarcity. And a classical example is that of the Lake Chad region, the Sahel, and we have many of those parts. Looking at the Darfur crisis in Sudan, that led to the outbreak of conflict. That was the first recognized in 2007, then by Ban Ki-moon, the then UN chief, the Secretary General, that stated it to be the first climate security induced factors. And that is what we are also seeing around the globe, looking at the Lake Chad region, leading to expansion of armed groups due to the loss of livelihood. So it's due to these climate processes. And we are having climate processes and climate events at the same time in Africa. So it's a huge crisis to bear. And at the same time, we are seeing people migrating or trying to find an alternative living or such of greener pasture so that they could survive the process. So we have seen the classification of climate drivers, that we have climate process and climate events. These are things that are happening in our world today. We are seeing this in California, where there's an outbreak of wildfires and it destroys large hectares of their land. It makes it to be degraded. At the same time, all of these non-climatic factors, it disappropriately affects people. Looking at population should rather be to our advantage. But now, since we can't enhance the population to grow the economy positively, then it's affecting us directly and indirectly, because this is leading to the growth of will I say emissions. It's also leading to displacement of people away from their livelihoods. And one of the powerful weapons against peace and security is the loss of livelihoods. And that makes me to go to the next slide, some school of thoughts that we have. Please, the next slide. Okay. Okay, thank you. The school of thought, which talks about migration result from the failure to adapt to climate change. And another one says migration against climate change is in of itself an adaptation strategy. So you see these two schools of thoughts, they intercept each other at the point of survival. Because the first school of thought, it's correct. Because when we are seeing the herdsmen and the farmers, they are trying to adapt to the crisis. The herdsmen have to live where there's drought, to go to where there's greener pasture with its cattle, just to survive the prevailing climate change crisis. Then in the process, there's always a clash. So that is where the adaptation strategy fails, because it can't accommodate the thousands of people that are trying to feed on the resources or the shrinking resources that people over there too are trying to find ways around to survive on it. So there's a school of thought in that area, but at the same time, they are still correct, because it's just a survival issue. When the survival issue fails, then we can see that there will be clashes, there will be war, there will be so many crises that we can't bear in such area that we are seeing in Nigeria today, and in some parts of Africa, and also in other Western countries, if possible, where we are seeing all of these factors interplaying from climate change induced factors. And let me just state this, that if we don't take necessary precautions or solutions now, it can lead to ethno-religious war between ethnic group or cultures or religion, because it's going to make them to put blame on each other, that, okay, you are the fault. This is coming from this religion, or this is coming from this culture. We have been seeing it. And that is why one of the solutions now is for us to have this climate education in our curriculum. When we have it, it's going to build the mind of young people to grow sustainably, to grow to become the solution provider to their society, and not to go to somewhere else or another man's country to look for a greener pasture, because we could create opportunity for ourselves, like turning the waste into useful things that we are seeing today, using it to make bags, shoes, clothes, and that is how it is. Then empowerment scheme too. We could also empower ourselves. We need to create more channels at which we can empower the youth to do more in carrying out our activities. And now let me go to the next to my third slide. Four ways climate migration affects development. Number one, increasing pressure on urban infrastructure and services. These are things that we are seeing in our world today, in my country too, that all of these things, when people migrate from one place to another, the limited resources will be pressured, you know, maybe a resources that is being shared by 5 persons and it's enough, then like 20 to 100 people will be trying to struggle for it. So it's see that it exerts a lot of pressure to urban infrastructures, and it can shrink such space, and it can lead to war or more crisis, creating new conflict or new crisis. And the second one is undermining economic growth. In a world like this, where there's crisis coming from climate change induced factors, economic growth will be affected. Just one of it is this coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic that we have seen, how it affected the world economy. It has been stated by IMF that this is the worst financial crisis that the world have ever gone through since 1920s, when all of this crisis started. So also increasing the risks of conflicts. There'll be more conflict. You know, it has been stated by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Crisis that all of these things that are sensitive to civil war are also sensitive to climate from climate change crisis, which talks about food insecurity, water scarcity, and health, then amenities. So once all of these things are affected, there's no way that it won't lead to conflicts, because in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Crisis in the 2007 report stated that climate change provides a fertile land for violence, because it makes all of these factors that will help build human security or human rights to shrink or to be affected. And one of it is the land, water, water, most importantly, that is needed for agricultural productivity, for health, and for every other forms that will be affected. So in the process, it leads to conflict when more than 10 persons is fighting for resources, you know. And we also need to take precaution on that, because once all of these things start, it might be irreversible. Some crises that we are faced today might be irreversible, and that is why we are calling or demanding for actions that are necessary. And the fourth is resulting to worse health, educational, societal indicators among migrants. So migrants, sometimes they don't have all of these health benefits, educational status to help them improve their lifestyle. Neither do they have societal indicators to help them to be able to balance up, because where they are going to, they don't have any networking routes. Neither do they have where they are going to feed, but they just keep going because they have no options. They have nowhere to go to. They have no house. They have no facilities to help them out. So one of those things that we could do is to also empower people, you know, to see how we can empower people to do more wherever they are in their country, so that they don't have to go to another man's land to find greener pasture. We need to create more channels towards giving people grants so that they could expand their business. We have a lot of people that are doing wonderful things, and we have a lot of people that are doing great things in the waste sectors, energy sectors, and
Hello, Adenike, are you there? Adenike? I guess we've lost her. Network is quite peculiar. So we'll just move on. I'll try to get across to her. Hello, Adenike. Okay, let's go on then. If you have any questions for Adenike, you can drop it in the chat box, and when she comes back online, we would address it. Pending the time she comes back, can we take the second poll? I'm about to launch it now, so we can just, take the second poll on how you rate our session and basically the session so far.
Maybe we wait until later. We can go to breakout rooms right now.
Okay. All right. We'll do the breakout rooms now. Fadil, is there something you need to say about what, maybe add to what Adenike has said?
Not much more, really. I think hopefully Adenike will be able to join us a bit later. Oh, she's here now.
Okay. Hello, Adenike.
Hi. Sorry. My wife is stripped off. Sorry.
Okay. I'll go back to sharing the screen and then you can continue. Is that okay? Hello, Adenike?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to sharing the screen now. Okay.
Create empowerment scheme for young people to be able to feed into it and do something great for their business to keep expanding. And secondly, capacity training for the youth. So it could help them to build their network strongly, and they could also stay back to do something great for their country, because lack of opportunity makes them to think of traveling out or scaling through a dangerous borders to get to another countries, and that could be bad. So it is being predicted that by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Crisis in 1990, which stated that the single greatest impact of climate change crisis will be on human migration, of which we are seeing today, because they will either be displaced by floodings, land degradation, drought, deforestation, all of these climate processes and events that I've mentioned before, and which is already happening, that we are seeing in our world today. So, and also, it was also stated by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Crisis that by 2050, if due actions are not taken, 1 out of 45 persons will be climate migrants. Already, the International Organization for Migration have stated that 50% of the people in our world today lives outside their place of birth. And it's happening, it's real. And this figure might have increased.
Okay. It's the network. So we'll just go into the breakout rooms. We have some pertinent questions that we want to ask you. Like I said, it's supposed to be an interactive session. So I'll be sharing the questions now, and we would basically be distributed into the respective breakout rooms. Here are the questions. So from what we've heard Adenike talk about, we're asking questions as regarding what role can civil societies play in combating environmental migrants. It is clear that there is actually climate-induced migration happening with the occurrence in Lake Chad and the ones Adenike talked about, which is in Sudan, and also with the herdsmen, which is peculiar to Nigeria. So how can civil societies play an active role in combating environmental migrants? I know that we have a number of representatives from civil societies in this program, so we want you to, share your opinion about this. Then the second question is, how can we create conducive immigration laws for receiving environmental migrants? From the school of thought Adenike shared, we should be able to, deliberate more on this. And the third is, what role can youth play in promoting an inclusive and just climate actions in their individual communities, whether in Wales or in Lagos or basically globally? And how can we tackle the effects of climate-induced migration in our respective communities in an equitable way? So with this breakout questions here, we would be asking you for feedback, and we need you to pick one representative to basically come back and discuss whatever you guys have decided on in these breakout rooms. So over to you, Fadili, as we distribute the audience.
Thank you, Yetunde. So there will be 4 breakout rooms, and I will open them now. So as Yetunde said, please, if we can have one representative feeding back to us, that will be fantastic. We're just opening the rooms now. And I'll put the questions on chat. So they should be on chat already, but we'll send them questions again. And it should be 10 minutes altogether. Thank you.
Okay, so we are back. I guess we already have representatives from each room. So which room would like to go first?
Sorry, I think I am the only person in group 4 now, but I think Mr. Victor was there, but he went out. So there was no one to discuss within the group.
Okay, so what's your opinion about the question? I understand that you have an opinion. So what's your opinion about the question? What do you think we can do?
So the question is, how can we tackle the effects of climate-induced migration in our respective communities? What I would like to say here is, as Adenike have spoken, I would like to add instead by saying that creating jobs for the youth, like what we are doing here, like down here.
Hello, Dogara. Hello. You're on. Hello, Dogara. So can you drop just drop your opinions in the chat box, and I can read it if there is, if you can. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I think my opinion is if we can create jobs, like jobs for the future, like from artificial intelligence, robotics, because down here in our side, the youth are losing values, and because they are not literate in the digital skills, something like that. So if we can create jobs and digital skills, I think that will help in tackling the effects of climate-induced the migration in our community down here in Adamawa State, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Victor James, you're next.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Yes. As you
Yes,
do
Victor.
know, I am environmental activist and activist. I have spent years right from the age of 17 to this day. Now I'm 31. So I spent my time campaigning for Niger Delta environmental issue. But I'm quite surprised that it wasn't included here. Niger Delta issues from oil spill to pollution, gas flaring, are key topic to include here. So I'm afraid there are certain things we shouldn't exclude because the issues in Niger Delta, I'm one of the people who have pushed it down to UK to an extent that Shell oil companies can also be sued here in the English court. So I'm looking at, when I started, I looked at the effect of the environmental issue in Niger Delta, how it might affect the local people there, making them to migrate to other safe countries like UK and all. So, but first of all, I thought about job opportunity, which the young man just said, because lack of job could create a lot of insecurity as well, you know, and they also create a loophole for corruption and bribery from the authority. So if you look at the situation in Niger Delta, it's a global issue. It's no longer a state issue as well. So it's a topic I would like us to globally engage because of the vulnerability of the people there. Even the water is not clean. A lot of people are dying from poisonous water, from the fact that the land too is poisonous because the farmers are complaining that when they go to farm, their proceeds are poisonous, and that increased death rate. Places like Ogoni land and Obodo community. So these are issues we like to take further. It's not just here. I'm always available. I'm currently in Swansea now, in Wales. So whenever you think of taking things in this line, these are areas I would like to champion, particularly climate case in Nigeria is not even talked about. Most people don't talk about climate effect in Nigeria or Niger Delta area. And they are scared because once they talk about it, they either get killed or they get detained by the authority. So we need some sort of security clearance too from international community so that young activists whom I have spoken with, who are in university, the people we tend to use, in my experience in this industry, are young people who are in university because they have no other engagement apart from their study. So once they buy into what you sell to them and they know that it's the right thing to do for humanity, they come on board. That's how I managed to mobilize people in Niger Delta. I start through university. That's how these things is work. Hello.
Yeah, thank you so much, Victor. Because of time, I may have to stop you there, but you've said you've mentioned several insightful points that I totally agree with. Niger Delta is actually part of the conversation. And of course, we can see several people from the Niger Delta region migrating because of the climate-induced issues happening, like gas flaring, oil spills, and all that, heat waves, and all that. So it is a very valid opinion. For the sake of time, yeah, I would want to indulge anyone that has an opinion on how to address these issues better should probably drop their drop it in the chat box, or I would put my email address in the chat box so you can send me your feedback, and we will definitely put all this into action. Because of time, do we have
5 minutes
Okay,
extra
5 minutes.
for
Okay.
people.
Fadili said
For anyone who's got thoughts.
Okay. Do we have any other person that wants to share?
Yes, good afternoon. Anita, representing room 3.
Awesome, please go on, Anita.
Okay, so the question was on how youth, okay, I can't find the question again, but it was basically about how youth can help champion just climate actions. And so our deliberations were bordered around policy making and helping lawmakers be held accountable to the kind of policies they make and to ensure that they are youth-friendly and friendly to the citizens. And we also mentioned advocacy and youth enlightenment, empowerment. To an extent, is bordered around what the first 2 speakers have said for employment, but also ensuring that youth have a level playing field to advocate peacefully, take proper insights from what happened last year in Nigeria as regards the NSAS. We can see that thus far, from the panels being held or judicial inquiries being done, there's not so much closure that has been taken from all the proceedings thus far, and that's not very encouraging. Having a backdrop for climate actions. Like Victor James said, as regards the Niger Delta area, it's pertinent. As for my master's degree, I went there first and I could see the effects of the spillage, what it causes to the yam, the cassava, and the poisonous proceeds or goods that have been harvested there. I saw firsthand how persons are being treated in terms of what they do there. And yeah, so in all, it's not a very pleasant sight. So that was basically all of what we discussed in our group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anita. Just to add to that, the question is, what role can the youth play in promoting an inclusive and just climate action in their individual communities and globally? I'm just going to quickly round off on what has been said, because I feel like one of the reasons why we are having this meeting is not just talk about what climate-induced migration is, but also what we can do individually to help, adapt to climate change, or even mitigate it individually without even expecting the government to do so much. Because if we wait for the government, we might not essentially get what we aim to do. So what can we do locally? What can we do individually to help promote a just climate transition, promote climate action within our communities and globally? Anyone wants to take up that question? Okay, Victor, you raised your hands. Please go on.
Yes. Yeah, from my experience, because I have been detained a lot in Port Harcourt, it's just because I managed to know some politician wanted to side with me. I'm a lobbyist, apart from activist. So the key, one of my advice is security clearance is what you look at for with authority. Don't expect them to make a difference. They are part of it. They make money from the oil. They make money from the things, the industry that pollute the environment, all right? So they are not gonna take money from corporation and then make a difference. There is no way it's gonna happen. For example, I'll give you an example. If you say, if we tell you that we don't want oil companies in Niger Delta, okay, because they are polluting our environment, the authority knows that they generate revenue from their activities. Whether or not it's killing people, they don't care. After all, they live in Abuja. So because they live in Abuja, presumably in their strategies that it doesn't affect them. So therefore, it's not their problem. So what I think is young people who wish to be activists should work hard to get security clearance from international community so that whatever they do, campaigning, the authority there will not clamp on them with police brutality. That's number one. So when you talk about authority, look about lobby with them. Politicians work like businessmen. They're looking at the profit that this corporation gives to the government revenue. Whether it pollute the environment, they don't care. And remember one thing in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, health and safety regulation is very poor. So there's poor compliance to that effect. So even this oil company, they don't comply with the ILO, International Labour Organization laws. So this is why the life expectancy in Niger Delta is very, very low. People die at the age of 45. When you see somebody who is 45, look at a person who is 45 in UK, they look 30. Are you getting the point now? So these are issues we do. Security clearance is number one. Otherwise, they will be killed by authority. I'm telling you the truth.
Okay, so thank you, Victor, for the insight. We have to round off now. Like I said, if you have any feedback that we've not essentially talked about, you can send it to this email address in the chat.
It's too late to say anything, except I would say that if you want to have environmental refugees to be accepted in various countries, you probably need to update the Geneva Convention for Refugees. The chances of that happening are precious little, but at least there could be some movement in that direction. Might be helpful, if not through that, through the Organization of Africa, the OAU, Organization of American States, various regional bodies. They might be able to encourage countries to accept people for environmental reasons. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult to see that happening.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Leslie. So like I said, if there are any feedbacks, please please send it to the email in the chat box. Before we round up, I want us to take the second and final poll, which is the summit session feedback. So we've got 3 questions. We just need your feedback, and in the next 2 minutes, we should be done with the feedback. Okay. We've got 50 seconds to rounding off. So now that the poll has ended, I just want to say thank you to our guests for a fantastic event. I know the climate change issue is not something really talked about, hence the low turn up, but we have to talk about it because this is a decade of action. This is when youth need to stand up and make that difference. But before we say goodbye, I'd like to remind our attendees that we really, really value your feedback on today's event. Yes, we've taken the poll, but this feedback, which is going to be pasted in the chat box, will help us improve and remain responsive to the needs of the African community in Wales and African communities in diaspora. So please click on the SurveyMonkey link in the chat box and feel as expected. So thank you very much for this event, for the success of this event. We really appreciate you staying till the very end, and we hope that we go back, thinking about what we've discussed and seeing how we as youth can make a difference in our communities locally. Someone that I really respect says this: think local, no, think global, act local. So on this note, I would, encourage every one of us to, think global, but act local. That is to say, acting local, which is as little as switching off appliances not in use, not littering, ensuring that our actions preach that we are ready to take, take that climate transition to the next phase. Thank you very much for this awesome event, and see you the next one we organize. Take care.